I'm Heidi Kim.
Hi, I'm Miriam McKenney.
I'm Sandra Montes.
Hello, my name is DJ Gordy.
So I'm in Oxnard, California right now. What about y'all?
I'm in Minnesota. I'm in Minneapolis, and we got like 6 inches of heavy, wet snow yesterday, which was early, and it's like set a record for the day of like snowfall on October, what was it? 19th, 20th, yesterday, 20th. So we
Wow.
set a record yesterday for the day. It's like the second most snow in the month of October, like ever in Minnesota. Thank you, Mother Nature. And like a lot of the leaves on the trees are still like they haven't fallen yet. So I woke up this morning and there were big piles of dirty snow with a bunch of leaves that have fallen on top of them that are getting like smushed into like leafy mess. And so I'm like, how am I supposed to clean? Am I supposed to use a shovel? Am I supposed to use a rake? Do I just like let it degrade into nasty mess and hope that it like feeds the environment? I don't know. Anyway, I'm feeling a little bitter about that.
Yeah.
Just a little bitter.
Well, I'm in Cincinnati where none of that's going on. Cincinnati, Ohio.
What's the weather like there?
It was warmer today than I thought. Like a wee beastie was in the kitchen. I was like, I thought you went back to where you belong, but no. So, a little cloudy, but not a bad day.
Yeah, here the past 2 days I haven't been able to go to the beach because it's a little cold. The sun isn't, it's cloudy and it's cold. I mean, it's windy, so but it's okay.
I feel so sorry for you.
Because I've been
I feel so sorry for you that it was too windy for you to go to the beach.
I last Wednesday and it was just, I got what I needed.
Oh, I saw your photos like on Facebook and stuff. So that was like, I was really glad because I know how much you love the beach.
I do, I know. And it just gives me so much life. I was telling people, I think I felt probably, well, maybe this isn't a good thing to say, but oh well. How people are really looking forward having Eucharist. I was really looking forward to just being able to dip my feet in, that cold, beautiful water that God can only provide. So for me, that was church.
Amen. You have a lot of beautiful water too, except for it's in solid form. And I have to shovel it. It wasn't quite what I was expecting. I'm sure I would have found it beautiful in November or December, but like October before Halloween, dang.
What do y'all do?
What?
What are y'all doing for Halloween?
That's a good one. Because I work in a school I work in a school and we're hybrid, and so half the kids are on campus the first half of the week, half on the second part of the week. So we're gonna have 2 different dress up days.
Oh,
so, I mean, I feel like I have to just like up my game like so much, right? Because I teach 6th graders. And 6th graders are super creative with costumes and stuff, but I don't know. I know a lot of people are gonna be Ruth Bader Ginsburg. My youngest daughter said I should try to be Edna Mode from The Incredibles because I love her. Last year I was a K-pop person. I was Lisa from Blackpink.
Do you dress up, Miriam?
It depends on my circumstances. So in the past, sure, I've been one of my favorite costumes from childhood. Like my mom made me a pumpkin. She sewed, so she made a lot of costumes. So she made me a pumpkin costume one year. And so then when I was working in Ann Arbor at University of Michigan, and we all dressed, like all the resident staff dressed up, I got one of those yard bags and like pumpkin yard bag and dressed up as a pumpkin again. But
oh, cute.
It's not really my thing. Yeah. Halloween is just, I don't do a lot. So probably this year I will be watching some K-drama.
It's not really my thing either, but I work in a school now. So,
Exactly. Black Cat's another favorite. I have one of those headbands. I used to have a tail somewhere.
Oh, nice.
I like to do spooky things. Like teaching is all about the spooky songs, the scaring the kids, turning the lights off. It's just fun. Well, you know me, I just love all that.
I'm gonna say, I'm like you're acting like we should be surprised by this information.
I mean, it's funny though.
Parent isn't called. If I don't get a phone call from a parent, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. That's how I feel.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
I love it.
Yeah, so it was like Halloween or any Friday the 13th. Oh, it was so much fun. Scary stories, lights off.
And you know, this year
Scary stories.
there's
I
a
would do
full
that.
moon. There's a full moon this Halloween, right?
Of course there is. Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
2020. Let's keep going, bruh.
What?
Yeah, Heidi, you could be a hype beast. If you don't know what that is, Google it. All you need is a Carhartt hat.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Cool.
Maybe I'll dress up as like a coronavirus. You know, just like take little paper towel tubes and like stick them out of my COVID-19.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe you can do the corona, like what's it called? The bottle. And just put a
Oh, like the coronavirus, except for we can't have like brand name kind of or anything that looks kind of like brand namey, especially for alcohol.
You can put a crown on also, you know, and you can be Corona. That's what you can be.
True.
Corona.
Okay.
Part 2 of our conversation with Scott Gunn.
And in the Episcopal Church, you know, I think the big problem that really nobody wants to ever talk about is our classism. Everyone says we love poor people here, but okay, is there anybody on your
We
vestry?
pay them a lot to work for us, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Is there anybody on your vestry who has to take the bus to come to the vestry meeting?
Mm.
People almost always say no to that.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is what I'd say is we have work to do. And you know, I'll use the example of the church I served when I was a rector. When I got there, I discovered that in the case of the neighborhood right around the church, the few blocks, I think it was a mostly white. It happened to be a mostly white neighborhood, but they were not. They were working poor. And when I started, nobody from the immediate neighborhood was a member of the church.
Mm.
And the church's relationship with the neighbors was yelling at them to stop using the parking lot.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, nobody intended for that, you know, but it's, we're all sinners. So let's see our sin and repent. It's fixable.
It is fixable.
So that's what I'd say, Miriam, is it's fixable. And every church I know of that has consciously cultivated diversity of all kinds can make a change. But you have to be willing to do that and do hard work and have conversations. You know, when we started getting more diverse socioeconomically in the church I served, sometimes people said awful things to some of the people, and I had to call people out and say, you can't treat people that way. You just can't. It's not this person's fault they're poor and they stuff coffee or food in their pockets when they leave. It's because that's their food for the day. So lighten up.
Right.
So, you know, but it's a work in progress. And part of this is I don't want to sound like I'm self-righteous here because I've done really dumbass things. And a couple of times Miriam has told me them and we're still friends. And so it's fixable.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right. Yeah. But that's what it means to believe that we are all created in God's image. That's what it means, you know, that you can have, I mean, all of us, we don't agree. I mean, we have different thought just because, and that's the thing, you know, FYI, if you're listening, people of color don't always agree on stuff, y'all, FYI, about race, okay? There's things we don't agree on, but we agree to disagree, and we agree that each of our opinions matters, and that is something that I think I can speak for the three of us and say that, right?
Yes.
So one of the articles that I can't even remember who wrote it or what it was, when the race conversation really accelerated in the country, after George Floyd's murder, I read an article by a person of, I think it was a Black person, written to white people to say, here's how to be a good ally, or whatever the title was. And one of the things was the point, Miriam, that you just made, which also really stuck with me, which is Black people or African Americans or whatever group we're talking about are not monolithic people, cookie cutter monolithic people. And if I'm a white person and I'm trying to work for change, I'm not going to please everyone. Everyone doesn't agree. And so part of it is the humility to figure out, when Miriam tells me I'm wrong, is that just because this is Miriam's opinion, which is fine? Or is it because, ooh, no, I'm really seriously wrong here, or a little of both? And so, there's a lot of listening and patience and discernment, I think.
Yeah, but and to that's why I always encourage white people to have people of color as friends. And I do hear that all the time, and I look at people's Facebook pages, and I look at who is leading things, and a lot of times it's just white people who are Episcopal. A lot of Episcopal entities, the presidents and the people who are way up there, they're all white. So then when together, like recently, some entities got together and everybody was white, and they're providing a resource for the whole Episcopal Church. And then so people like me, I'm like, why? Why is it always continually white? And but yet it's for everyone. Here Latinos use this. And I have no use for that, because I'm not going to see myself in it. Or as has happened to me, and I'm sure to my sisters, then they come to me at the last minute when it's like so unfixable that you're like, I can't paint brown over it and people think it's gonna be brown. It's not going to work that way. But so my big point is for you, I guess, how, if you do have people of color who are your friends that you have actually, had relationships with, how have you cultivated them? Or if you are still in the process of that, what are you doing to cultivate more friendships with people of color?
Yeah, no, it's, I think I probably, I have some, I mean, if, depending on how you define friend, having somebody over for dinner or what, whatever. At various points in my life, I've definitely had close friends who are people of color. Probably not as many as, the three of you do, just as a percentage. And so I think it's always something to think about, and to think about, why don't I have friends of color? And but in terms of organizational change, again, this is fixable. So our board of directors at Forward Movement, when I started, wasn't quite all white, but we weren't as diverse as we could be. We've worked really hard in our board recruitment to make sure that we're diverse in all kinds of different ways. And I'm very proud of that work that we've done to have a diverse board that's racially diverse, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, geography. And for a 13 or 14 member board, I think we've done a pretty good job. And on our staff, I think we, in terms of percentages, we're certainly way more diverse than the Episcopal Church writ large. And we still have room to go, but it's important to have that diversity, exactly for the reason you said, Sandra. So, I worked for IBM for a year back in 1993 and 94. And when I was getting an orientation, I noticed that they were providing health benefits for same-sex domestic partners, which back in 1993 was almost unheard of. And I remember I got to know my boss well enough, and because I'm always willing to ask questions, I said to my boss, I'm just curious, and he was no liberal by any stretch of the imagination. I said, I'm just curious. I was surprised by this. He knew that I was a crunchy granola leftist. I said, I'm surprised by this. What's up? And he said, and this is like a, not a modern like Trumpist Republican, but kind of an old school Republican. He said, some of our customers are lesbian and gay. And how could we possibly attract customers and serve customers if we don't have lesbian and gay people on our staff? We need to look like the people that we're trying to sell computers to. And so diversity is important. And his motivation was diversity for the sake of looking like your customers so you can make more money and have a bigger stock price. So I'm not sure that would be my motivation, but in a way,
But
that's
like-
not totally different from if we're trying to make disciples of all nations, we need to be as diverse as the people that we're trying to reach out to. And if we're not as diverse as the people we're trying to serve, there's a problem.
Well, we can't even get, I mean, we have the Jesus language, right? And we can't even convince people of that kind of like, you know, the people that we claim that we want to serve,
Yeah.
you know, that are, you know, this is who we all are. And, you know, we can't even agree on that. So this sort of takes me to the numbers question. Oh, no, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say one thing I wonder about is, and we know we've talked about other differences and demographic differences. One thing I wonder about is generational differences. And it occurs to me that by and large, I think baby boomer generation brings many gifts to the world. And I'm thankful for them. But I also think one of the liabilities is, by and large, there are exceptions, of course. I think that generation tends to kind of live on a kind of ideological purity of you're either all with me or you're against me, you're a good person, you're a bad person. And that's why in the country and in the church, you've seen people fight to the death over stuff. And I think other generations don't view absolutes that way. And I wonder if, going back to the question about wokeness, if one of the issues is if I'm kind of trying to maintain my ideological purity bubble, I don't want to admit that I might know anything or that there are problems in my positions or that some of the people I like aren't all awesome. But if I take away those stakes and I say we're all sinners, so I can like Martin Luther King, even though he plagiarized stuff, I don't have to conceal the fact that he was a plagiarist. He's also an amazing prophet. But I think there might be generational differences there. That in our church, almost all of our leaders are baby boomers right now. But maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me I'm nuts if you want.
I was going to say, I'm like a tail end boomer, and I also am just waiting for my generation to die off. Sorry.
Die off or repent, one or the other.
I'm like totally okay boomer right here. Like, just ask my sixth graders when I try to use technology. But so I have a little bit of a question around this kind of stuff, and because you probably think about this stuff too. You know, the parochial reports just came out, and every time they come out, people lose their damn minds about the church is dying. The church is dying. Yeah. And it's so. I mean, so I get what you're saying, Miriam, about being a numbers person but not being a numbers person, because every time those parochial reports come out and the panic attack sets in, I'm also kind of thinking like, well, what have you been doing since the last parochial report came out? And so what's your take on that?
As one of my friends says, and I don't know if she, I don't think she coined this phrase, but I learned it from one of my friends. She says, the church isn't dying, we're killing it. And okay. And I think the problem is there are growing churches. There are growing churches, big ones, little ones, liberal ones, conservative ones, urban churches, rural churches, suburban churches. Name any kind of church there is, and I can find you an example of a church like that that's seeing real, demonstrable, measurable growth, where more people are showing up. Right. So the problem isn't that there's something inherently defective in us and we have to shrink. It's that it gets back to discipleship. I think too many of our churches are about preservation and maintenance and not about transformation. And why, for the love of God, would anybody get out of bed on a Sunday morning in the year of our Lord 2020 and go to a place where a bunch of self-satisfied people are hanging out, telling each other how awesome they are, and they all know each other? I want to hang out with people.
You just described the three of us.
All of us when we're hanging out with our friends.
But we don't get to go hang out together physically. That's the drawback.
I know.
But you know what I'm saying? I think
I do.
I think the gospel's bigger than that. And I personally think that the decline of the church is an indictment. It's not a condemnation of any individual priest, and I don't want to shame anyone or make anyone personally feel bad that you personally failed, but collectively, the gospel is exciting. and it inherently leads to growth. It leads to my growth in my life, and more people want to do it. And if I get converted to wanting to follow Jesus, I'm going to want to tell other people about it. I can't help myself.
That's right.
So,
Reach out. Yes.
yeah, so I think it's a failure, and a lot of it's this conversation we're having. We have churches full of rich, older white people, and if you're not a rich older white person and you show up there, there's a pretty good chance you might not feel welcome.
Yes, I agree. I did that I've done that for many years, but for 2018, that's what I did. And it was only in my diocese, and I did not feel welcome at most. I felt welcome maybe once, and it's in Texas, and I didn't see anybody that looked like me. And, they knew I was there for the first time. I mean, look at me, come on now, it's not like you're going to forget, I'm not me. I don't have, the regular color hair, and I'm darker than anybody else in the church. And they would just totally ignore me, like they didn't care, and so I think that, one of the things, I don't mind shaming people. I think we need to be told that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. But that's just, that's how I handle teaching and stuff. But at the same time, I also
but
don't.
that's not shaming. You're not telling people they are bad. You're saying they did a bad thing, right?
Yeah,
You're not
that's speaking the truth in love.
Yeah. It's like, because that's the thing that, we learn as teachers, right, and professors. If I'm not excited about the subject, ain't nobody gonna be excited about the subject. If Miriam isn't excited about a book, nobody's gonna care about the book that she's gonna read. So we have to be.
That's exactly right.
We have something so incredible that supposedly we believe that nobody else has, like this. How can I not want to share? And then when people do come to us, how can I not continually tell them, you are loved, this is good, stay with us, and all that stuff. And I think a shift in thinking, like you're saying, I would love, for these revivals, like Tech, how they had all these revivals. Where's the fruit of the revivals? Is there any? Because I want to see that. Where's the excitement? Where's the contagiar, like for it to be contagious with others? I don't get it. Why aren't we doing that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. But I think, and what I would say is, because I'm always worried about, I do want to speak the truth in love and have other people speak the truth in love. Guilt, I think, can be a productive emotion. Sometimes it makes us do the right thing. Shame, of course, isn't always so awesome. So, but I think I always want to try to figure out how to talk about this, because I just said that, the problem is we're a church of a bunch of rich old white people. And if somebody's watching this or listening to this and they're in a church like this, I don't want them to hear me saying that all hope is lost and that what they're doing is bad, because Jesus is there and what they're doing is good. It's just that the problem is it's not big enough. There's not enough people there. And I think the very encouraging thing here is we just had at the gospel a few weeks ago, the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, right? So the people who have been laboring all along, God loves them. The people who showed up halfway through the morning, God loves them. The people who showed up at lunchtime, God loves them. The people who showed up for coffee break in the afternoon, God loves them. And the person who shows up an hour before quitting time, God loves them too.
Right.
And
the same.
Exactly.
The same. And there's always the 11th hour. It is never too late to turn for any of us.
Love
and
that.
I just wish. So I hope we don't give up. I hope we see like there's still time.
Well, I want to give an example of a situation, and Scott knows about this. For me, growing up in a church, in a predominantly Black church here in Cincinnati, where my dad was the priest, I had what I would consider a unique experience. Unfortunately, it may not be unique to a lot of Episcopalians, but I think it was unique if you were a Black Episcopalian and didn't go to a predominantly Black church, if you get my point. In other words, I understood what beloved community was because that was my experience. And when we think about it, talk about it today of what does the beloved community look like, I had a perfect understanding of what it looked like. And I sought that in my adulthood and I couldn't find it. So I didn't have a church home for 18 years. And when I went to Calvary, which is a predominantly white church, I mean, there's, maybe 3 Black men that go to that church and people will mix our kids up. It's like, it's totally ridiculous. So people sometimes ask me, why do you go to that church? You want to know why? Because when I went, first of all, they hired my dad out of retirement to be the assistant priest because they wanted to have a person of color on their staff, on their clergy staff, and not
Yep.
just the custodians. Number two was when I went to that church, they had Lift Every Voice and Sing. And if they didn't have it the first time I went, they got it. And it was not just a couple copies, but multiple copies. And our organist, choir director, Howard Helvey, sang, we had a song out of it every week. So when I went into that place, I didn't see myself as far as in the pews, but I saw myself in the liturgy. And I saw myself in the Sunday school, and I saw, my kids could see themselves there. And that's why 17 years later, we still go to that church. And now I'm on staff at that church.
Right.
That is what it looks like to believe that we are all the same in God's eyes, is that even if you have no people of color at your church, you are singing a song in Spanish. You have Lift Every Voice and Sing in your pews, and you're singing that music because you understand that it is about all of us and not just this little slice over here, and plus Jesus isn't white. So that, I think, is what it can look like for those churches who struggle. It's like you make a plan and then you do that thing.
Yeah. So, I have a question for the three of you.
Love it.
So this is something I wonder about a lot. I think there's a fine line between, music's a good example. There's a fine line between practicing diversity and wanting to show that the Christian faith is global and that we're a people of many cultures and many eras and many, that we're diverse. There's a fine line between that and then kind of cultural appropriation. And I've been with, in mostly white churches sometimes that have had the choir sing a spiritual, or we sang something from Lift Every Voice and Sing, and it's felt really good. And other times it's felt pretty icky. And I'm just curious, how do you, what do the three of you think about, like, when's that good, and what's the line that says, hold on, white people, you don't have the right to do this?
I love this question.
That's a good one.
Let's take a
That's a
break.
good question. It's not as much of an issue for me because there's like 7 Koreans in the American Episcopal Church. It's like Bishop Shin and Yan, and I'm sorry, I'm kidding. But like we're like a minority within the minority.
Yep.
Like I don't necessarily expect it. I don't expect to see myself in the liturgy, except for the fact that I love super high wasp Anglican choral music because I was classically trained. And, so I could, in my younger years, when I was singing professionally all the time, I could sing like a boy soprano, so I got a lot of work in Episcopal and Anglican churches and singing that stuff. And that's like a Korean thing where we do a lot of classical music in our, in the culture. But yeah, I don't know. I just like, I want to hear what the two of you guys have to say about it.
Did y'all know that Scott plays the organ, and that's how he came to the Episcopal Church?
Oh, seriously? I came to the church through the choir, so
yeah,
we got in common, Scott.
Yeah,
I mean, like Charles Villiers Stanford. I love that shit. I love that shit.
Yep.
Just bring it on.
I ain't mad at it either.
Keeping those words, just FYI. You always think like
Bird Mass in 5, 1 out apart. I love that shit. That was what I used to do, right? So
right on.
For me, it's there is a fine line. I do agree with that. But there's also people who will make it an excuse not to be diverse because they're like, oh, we don't want to be appropriate. We don't want to appropriate, or we don't want to do it wrong, or whatever. There's so many ways to do it, especially nowadays when there's, technology available. I get requests all the time to record something for somebody that wants to do it more authentically, or to be able to speak the words correctly. I also have a lot of, friends who invite me to sing for them, etc. I think it just depends on the church and on the heart. If they're doing it because they are called to do it in a loving way, you will feel it. And even when it's ugly, when it's, I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't say ugly, because I think music is beautiful, but maybe when it's not done, to a certain degree of, when it's out of tune or whatever, it may not sound as beautiful to us, but at the same time, it's people trying. It's when they don't care. Like I've
Yeah.
seen in my own diocese, when they have what's it called, a white person reading the gospel just because Spanish is phonetic, and they're reading it in Spanish, and they're really killing it. That's not necessary. We're in Texas. They could have found a person of color, a brown person to do that.
Yeah.
I always tell people, and it's in my book, by the way, but I tell people that if they don't have anybody who is a person of color who can help them, they should ask themselves, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And if the answer is not because I'm called to do it, because I feel like it's something that the church needs to hear, because there are people out there that we're hoping to attract, then why are you doing it? But if the answer is that, I'm called to do it, Jesus is asking me to do this because there is going to be a future for us to do this, then then do it, and then you just get better and better, I think. What do you think, Miriam?
Yeah, I have a two-pronged answer. One goes back to something you said earlier, which is right on the money. It's like when you're reading a story and you don't like it, kids can tell, and so can adults, and so can regular people. So I think, that intent and your desire is important. Also, though, I will just say this regarding, say, for example, people want to, like you said, you're right on when you say people use it as an excuse not to do it, and I'm just not having it. So if at my church, Howard Helvey, a world-renowned musician and photographer who takes all my headshots, but Howard has written and arranged many spirituals, and he knows it's going to be mostly white people singing it, and the way that it's arranged, it sounds like white people are singing it like that. I've sung them because I was in the choir. I also am a singer, and I was in the choir at Calvary, and that's what it sounds like. And guess what? That is okay. I don't consider that cultural appropriation. I consider spirituals and Black music in general as American history, and it is all of our history, and we need to be so then what does that mean? I can't sing a hymn that some white person wrote? Like I just can't get on board with that concept. But you have to be doing it from your heart and with the right intent, and then the authenticity is there. You don't have to sound like that is some Black person singing it. If you're not Black, that's just not going to work. Period.
Like for classically trained people, you all have to learn to sound the words in Italian and in French and German, so you can do the same thing in Spanish. You know what I mean? So it's, to me, it's like,
yes,
when you don't do your homework, it shows.
Right.
You don't really care about what's coming out of your mouth. And there's some music out there. My son is also classically trained. He loves all that, early music. And he has
he's my boo.
Yes, and he has found some great stuff for that. So you can find it. Even if you are high church and you want these chorale pieces, do it. There's all of that for everybody.
No, absolutely. And I think Lift Every Voice is a great hymnal. And there's stuff in there. Harold Lewis, the editor of it, wrote all these hymns for the modern saints. I love his hymn, except for one poetry line. I love his hymn about Martin Luther King. That's in Lift Every Voice. I just love that. I can't sing it without breaking down. But then there is, that feels appreciative to me and has an integrity. But I'll tell you when I got icky, I was thinking about it, and the reason my screen changed was because I was Googling something. It actually is the hymn, Lift Every Voice and Sing. I've been in churches of all white people, and when you get to this line, we have come over a way with tears that have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. I just think, I feel like I don't have the right to sing that. And that's when it, that's when it seems to cross the line into something that, if I'm in a church that's racially diverse, and there are some around, then it's great to, I think, offer up that praise together. But I don't know, read the room, people.
Well, read the room.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
I think you can feel it though, and you obviously feel it. And so obviously, so when you hear it, hopefully other people are also like, oh man, you know what I mean? And then it touches you. And hopefully then that'll make you, let me look up this song. Let's see what that means. Or let's, look more deeply into it. But yeah,
Well,
Right.
and I mean, I think that, so here's the thing, right? Like you can, if you do, you try some hymns and psalms and things in Spanish. And if you have Latino people coming in, there are going to be some who love it, feel really welcome. There are going to be some who come in and like, who the hell do you think you are?
Yep.
Because we don't all agree.
Yep.
That particular line, I mean, we're singing it or hearing it or something recently, and because like every time somebody starts playing it, I got to stand up and sing it. um it had a different meaning for me having moved to Minneapolis after the murder of George Floyd, because
Yeah.
we're here, right? Like, so I have students who live really close by, like, the city was
Yeah.
on fire, go out in the morning, you smell the tear gas or whatever, you smell the smoke, and to me it's like we are still walking through the blood of the slaughtered,
Yeah.
and that is why we have a Black Lives Matter movement in this
Yeah.
time,
Absolutely.
because and going back to your earlier point about if we are all going to be the body together, when one part of the body suffers, the whole body suffers.
Right.
So I think that particular line for me is a reminder that whether I want to look at it or not, it's still right in front of me.
Yeah.
And part of what I need to remember in terms of my own spiritual journey, my own transformation from sin to redemption, is that I cannot look away from that blood, and I have to remind myself that it is
Yeah.
there. And if whatever happens, here in Minneapolis, I know we're going to have just continuing protests as the trials unfold and all of that kind of stuff, is that there's no ending point to it, right? That this is the journey towards the cross for all of us. And so I think that for me, that particular line is one that I feel that I need to sing more more strongly in this moment, because
That's very helpful.
all of the crazy that's happening around us. um and that's kind of, I'm no theologian. You're like a theologian. My mom's a theologian, my daughter's a theologian, right? But I just like kind of feel some stuff, and I definitely felt that singing that song, thinking about George Floyd
That's
and
very helpful.
all of the other people that have died horrendous deaths through the place that we find ourselves in.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you sing that, Scott Gunn. You sing it loud and proud.
Yeah, I was gonna say it also, you can sing it because certainly I know, so that song for me, of course, going back into my UBE days. And so, imagine you have all of these priests and deacons and lay people coming together once a year to basically fill ourselves back up so that we can go back into
Right.
the world and do it all over again. It's like time doesn't exist almost, and we're having these very elaborate and extensive worship services, and we would always sing that song. And I think now, doing that just in church, singing it at Calvary, again, it reminds me that this is all of our history. And there are people of all ethnicities
Yeah.
who've died for this fight. White people have died for this fight. We celebrate their lives as saints in the Episcopal Church. And so, and we've all walked through it. So I think certainly we can contextualize it within the African American community. I mean, it's the Black national anthem. It's all of it, but it's also American history. It also marks a place and a space in time, and yet it transcends that. And one last thing I would say on this issue is, earlier I was thinking of the Thomas Merton prayer, which I've recently come to know and love, and I say it often. The desire to please God pleases God.
Yes.
People's desire to do this work when we mess it up still is pleasing to God. And so that for me is why is like, if I start to get confused, or if I start to wonder, question people's, I that's not my job to question that in some respects, because they're trying, even when it looks whack, and y'all know we've seen some whack trying out here. It's embarrassing, it's hurtful sometimes.
Yeah.
But we then also have to consider the fact these are the people who are trying.
Yeah,
And
they're
how many more
celebrating.
aren't?
Amen.
That's right. Hey, so so just one thing I want to share with you, Scott, is that I actually met Miriam at UBE annual meeting, right? 50th anniversary.
That's right.
And the best party in the entire Episcopal Church is the UBE annual meeting. And I've had, so, and Sandra was there and she introduced me to Miriam. We had a good time. It started this whole sort of the three of us being really becoming close friends. I remember a very good friend of mine who is an older white person who is really lovely and does a lot of anti-racism work was like, well, you know, I'd go there except for, you know, I look at the photos and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of white people there. And I'm like, dude, I am the only Korean person there. There's way more white people there than there are Korean people. So like, put on your big boy pants and show up. But it is like everyone is welcome. And it is like the one party where it does not matter who you are, you show up and you are welcome. And I would encourage every Episcopalian to try to get themselves to a UBE annual meeting. It is the most wonderful, fun, delicious, uplifting gathering, I think, of the Episcopal Church every year. I don't know. That's just my
right on.
opinion.
I went to their Parte at General Convention last time. It was great.
Yeah. So you should come to the annual meeting. All right. So I have one also last question that I said I was going to ask you. Were you nervous about coming and talking to us tonight?
Because I know the three of you know.
Okay.
But to be honest with you, if you know, total strangers, Korean, Latina, Black person, Black woman called me and said, would you be on our show? And I didn't know them. I would be nervous because I'd be worried about, because I just, you know, I wouldn't want to say stupid things, but I know you all, we love each other. And if I said something stupid, you would lovingly tell me that and we'd move on. Yes. And I think I've talked to all of you individually about various things here. And I think it gets back to what Miriam said, that, you know, in my own clumsy way, sometimes I'm trying, and I think you three know that. And so I knew it was going to be okay. So I wasn't too nervous.
Well, that's great. You know, like, and this is our trying as well, right? Like we're trying, right? Because
this is the pilot.
Yeah, like we don't have it all figured out, and there's a lot of stuff that you know we don't feel the same way about, and that's the beauty of our community, right? Is that we're learning from each other and we're pushing each other, and we all have growing edges. And
no, absolutely. And I think, you know, I was thinking, Heidi, when you were talking about going to the UBE, not too long after I came to Foreign Movement, Anthony Guillen, I called him up one day and just said, hey, I'm new at Foreign Movement. I don't think we've always done a great job. We've tried, but I think we could do a better job of serving the Latino Hispanic community and offering resources. So just tell me, you know, and so we started a friendship. We've been friends ever since then. We've had meals together, but not too long after that, he invited me to the new community gathering that was out in San Diego, I think that year. And he outright said to me, he was very loving when he said this. He's like, it's offered by the Ethnic Ministries offices, and we invite a few white people, but the white people we invite, we know will be people who will listen. Hint, hint. You know. And so I went out there, and first of all, it was fantastic because, you know, people who aren't white usually party better than people who are white. Yeah. And so there was that. And the food was great because it was, you know, the diversity of different kinds of food. It wasn't standard hotel rubber chicken. And I had the pleasant experience of a couple of times sitting down at a table full of people and people saying, basically, why are you here? Not in hostility. And it was great. And I had really good conversations there. And so I think it's good. This is one of the reasons why I like to travel. I think it's good for me, a majority culture person who benefits from most every category of privilege, to sometimes be put in a position where I don't get those benefits, or they're different, or things are spun around. It has given me, traveling around the world has given me a better appreciation of the culture that I live in. And so I would say, yeah, go to UBE. I spent about a year going to a historically Black church. It was so awesome. I learned so much there, and they were so kind. You know, the reason I went back, by the way, is the first time Sherilyn and I went there together, because the presiding bishop, I don't want to say where this was, it was many years ago, but the presiding bishop was there. And at the peace, a woman came over and said, "We are so glad you're here." And the way she said it, I felt like I was hearing the voice of God. And she said, "Please come back." And I knew she meant it. And we came back. And I loved that place. So, you know, I learned so much by getting out of my, I was going to say comfort zone, but it wasn't too uncomfortable. There's just a willingness to say, you know, I'm going to have to look around a little bit here to figure out. It's like, you know,
it's unfamiliar, right?
It's unfamiliar. It's like, you know, I went to a really fancy lunch place in Rhode Island one time with somebody, and I got nervous because there were like 15 pieces of silverware around the plate. And that's fancier. You know, I grew up with a knife, a fork, and a spoon, period. And you think outside in, but it's not always true. There are exceptions. And so I had to, like, you know, I'm looking around the table seeing, okay, what do I do next? And it's like that, you know, it's a little uncomfortable, but it's a learning. And so it's like that at the new community. I don't always know what to do, but I can learn. And if I screw up and grab the wrong salad fork, people still love me.
That's
all
So
right.
thanks for loving me, even though I probably used the soup spoon for the dessert.
I was gonna say, you just solved that with chopsticks. That's all I'm saying. You just solved
Amen.
that. You just solved that shit with some chopsticks. All right.
And one spoon.
No spoon, hardcore chopsticks. I'm with you, Heidi.
Even the Koreans use a spoon. Come on,
I'm about to say
fight me.
For some things, yeah.
Yeah, soup. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well,
For
thank you so
some-
much. This was a lot of fun to hang out and talk.
that. We really appreciate it. And we'll let you know when this comes out.
All right. Well, take care. God bless you. And I'll sign off. And
Yeah, thank
Again,
you, Scott. This was really fun. Thanks.
yeah,
a
and I
lot.
hope I'd love to talk to you after you've had like 6 other guests. I'd love to talk to you again and see, you know, what's evolved.
Yeah.
You just want us to tell you, you know, Scott, you're our favorite.
Yeah.
That's what you.
Yeah, but
Nobody
next
was
person,
as good as you.
yeah, no, but
Everybody's
next
views
person-
are their own in this group, FYI.
Yeah, no, it's
For
fine.
ourselves.
Next time it'll be like, well, he was our favorite, but now you're our favorite. That's fine. I can handle it. All right. Well, God bless you all and thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Stay tuned for the next episode of Real WOC.